All right, so today we are diving into a story that is so unbelievably wild, it feels like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood script. We're talking about the Montauk Project, a conspiracy theory that, believe me, has it all. I mean, just take a look at these claims. We're talking about a secret government program that was supposedly cooking up psychic super soldiers, opening up actual portals through time, and even creating monsters pulled right out of somebody's darkest nightmares. So what are we looking at here? Is this just the amazing plot of a hit TV show, or could there be something more to it? Like a real, honest-to-goodness, top-secret government project? That is the question we're going to dig into as we unpack the incredible legend of the Montauk Project. So, where did this all come from? Well, you might be surprised. It didn't start with some leaked, classified document. Nope. This entire incredible legend was unleashed on the world from a single book that came out in 1992. The book was called The Montauk Project: Experiments in Time, and it was written by a man named Preston B. Nichols. But here's the kicker. Nichols wasn't a journalist. He wasn't some whistleblower. He claimed that this entire book was a true story, based on his own recovered memories of a life he never even knew he had. And that brings us to the man at the very center of all of this, Preston Nichols. His story is really the key. We're talking about an engineer who claims he accidentally stumbled his way into a forgotten past, one that had been violently erased from his mind. Now, Nichols wasn't just any old engineer. He had his degrees in electrical engineering, sure, but also in this: parapsychology. I mean, think about that. That's the study of things like telepathy, psychic abilities, all the stuff that's way outside what we'd call conventional science. And that unique background is absolutely crucial for understanding how this whole story unfolds. Okay, so here's how it supposedly went down. Nichols is doing his own research into psychic phenomena, and he notices this weird radio signal that's jamming his test subjects at the exact same time every single day. So, being an engineer, he traces the signal. And the source? An old abandoned Air Force base out at Montauk called Camp Hero. He goes to investigate with a friend, Duncan Cameron, and that's when things get really strange. Just being there, on that site, triggers this sudden flood of what he calls suppressed memories. They didn't just find the base, they had worked there. Nichols came to this absolutely staggering conclusion, which he lays out in his book. He realized he wasn't just some guy who stumbled onto a secret. In what he calls another timeline, he was a key player. He was the project's technical director. And when his part was done, they sent him back to his life and just wiped his memory clean. So as these memories start flooding back, Nichols begins to remember the insane technology that was powering all of this. And at the very heart of it was a device they called the Montauk chair. And according to Nichols, this was no ordinary piece of furniture. It supposedly started out as a device that could read a psychic's thoughts and show them on a screen. But then it got juiced up. It could supposedly broadcast thoughts to control people's minds from miles away. And then came the most incredible claim of all. It could take a thought, just a thought, and make it a solid physical object you could actually touch. So you gotta ask, right? Where in the world does technology like that come from? Well, according to the book, it wasn't human at all. The design was supposedly reverse engineered from recovered alien tech. Yep, you heard me right, aliens. As more of Nichols's memories returned, so did the project's darkest secrets. And this is where the story shifts from just being fantastic to being truly horrifying. We're talking about massive human experiments and bizarre trips through time itself. At the center of this was a program he remembered as the Montauk Boys. The goal, he claimed, was to create a literal army of powerful psychic soldiers. And this is where the human cost becomes absolutely staggering. The book claims the project didn't use volunteers. No, it says they abducted thousands of runaway and homeless kids and subjected them to intense physical and psychological torture to break them down and rebuild them as psychic weapons. But it didn't even stop there. By putting a really powerful psychic like Duncan Cameron in the chair, the project supposedly learned to do more than just make objects. It could make doorways, time tunnels, And the places they claim to have gone, I mean, look at this list. From the Civil War to World War II and even into the distant future to supposedly make contact with alien races. You know, when you're playing with that kind of power, you're just begging for something to go terribly wrong. And according to the story, on one very specific day, the entire project blew up in their faces in the most monstrous way imaginable. The date was August 12th, 1983. And listen, that date is no coincidence. It was chosen to deliberately create a link to another famous conspiracy theory. Right. The story claims a direct link between the two. The infamous Philadelphia experiment of 1943, where the USS Eldridge supposedly vanished, well, that event accidentally ripped a hole in space-time. 40 years later, to the day, the Montauk Project allegedly locked onto that same rift from their end, creating a stable but incredibly dangerous bridge between 1943 and 1983. So, with this portal open and the chair supercharged, the scientists made a fatal mistake. They told Duncan Cameron, the psychic in the chair, to unleash a monster from his subconscious, from his id. And the chair, it did its job. It manifested a huge, hairy, ravenous beast that began tearing the base and its personnel to pieces. The only way to stop it was to literally travel back through the time portal to the USS Eldridge in 1943 and destroy the equipment, shutting the whole thing down. So, the crisis was averted, the beast vanished, the timeline was saved. But what happened next is how this bizarre story from a single book became a true pop culture phenomenon. According to Nichols, the disaster was so immense that the project was immediately shut down. The underground base was sealed tight, and every single survivor had their memories wiped clean, just like he did. It's a perfect, tidy ending, right? It neatly explains why no one else could ever corroborate his story. Now, if any of this is sounding really, really familiar, it should. Let's just look at the direct parallels to the hit show Stranger Things. A secret government lab experimenting on psychic children? Well, that's the Montauk Boys, and that's 11. A monster unleashed from another dimension, born from someone's mind? That's the beast from the id, and that's the Demogorgon. Even the secret lab, Hawkins National Laboratory, is basically a carbon copy of the labs supposedly hidden beneath Camp Hero. So the main takeaway here is that this is not a coincidence. As this quote from our source material makes clear, nearly every single core element of the show is present in the original Montauk Project conspiracy. In fact, and this is wild, the show's original working title wasn't Stranger Things. It was simply Montauk, which leaves us with one final, pretty unsettling thought, doesn't it? Preston Nichols claimed his memories were wiped, but that they eventually came back. So, if the story is true, and thousands of others were involved, who else might be out there, just one strange radio signal away from remembering everything?